friends, Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here today to share with you my new hair growth stimulating oil recipe because I've been making some changes. Actually, I haven't made it yet, but I already know in here what it is I want to do for these changes and why. And I'll be talking about some of the other options you can use as far as the herbs for infusing the oil or the essential oils if you even choose to add them, because I don't think you necessarily have to add the essential oils. They just add an added benefit to it or can make up for any herbs that you may not already have on hand to use. So first, let me start off by sharing with you how I got into making this. It was just a recipe I came up with on my own based on my basic knowledge of different herbs and how they work and how they can help with hair growth. So what started this was back about 8-9 years ago, whenever it was I first took ourselves off the thyroid medication. At that very same time was when I first started going through menopause. And so I kind of was hit by a double whammy there in the health area. And it was probably the worst time for me to choose to go off my thyroid medication. But regardless, I still made it through, even though I had a very tough first year. And I talk all about that in my video that Patrick and I did together on getting off our thyroid medication. And I will make sure that I link to that in the description box down below for those who are interested. So coming back to that, because whenever your thyroid's out of whack or you're going through menopause, these are two different things that can cause a lot of hair loss in women our age. I was losing my hair like just every day, big handfuls of hair. Now, thankfully, in my case, I never got bald spots, and I'm pretty sure that's because I just naturally have a lot of hair anyway, but it did get a lot thinner and a lot shorter. My hair used to be much longer even than it is right now. And of course, being curly makes it look even shorter. But even when it was totally curled up, it would still be at least down to here. Because my hair was falling out in such great amounts, it was actually getting shorter to the point and so quickly that people who hadn't seen me in several months saw me in the store and said, "Oh, I like your new haircut." And I appreciated the fact that they liked it, but it would actually make my heart sink because I realized that how short my hair was appearing to people, that they actually thought I'd cut it when that wasn't even the case. And it was a real scary time for me because I didn't know if it was ever going to stop, if my hair was ever going to start growing again like it should. In that process, as my body's going through these two different changes, trying to adjust to not having the synthetic thyroid medication every day and my thyroid trying to heal itself, as well as going through that change of life physically, I was really working on ways to not just improve my diet, of course, during that time. Even though I've always been a pretty healthy eater, there's still improvements we can always be making along the way, but also trying to find more topical ways that I could help my hair do what it should do and get it growing again. So I came up with this recipe. Now, this one was very simple. This particular one was simply red pepper infused oil, and I believe I started off with the avocado oil because that's simply my favorite one to use when it comes to infusing oil for several reasons. However, there are other options. You can use olive oil, you can use grapeseed oil. Just keep in mind the ones that have a lower heat tolerance. You want to shoot for more of a cold infusion and not try to infuse them in a place that stays really warm like I do, because mine sit in my living room close to, not right next to, but close to where my wood stove is. And I do that so it helps to speed up the infusion process. Because when you're infusing it in a cold, in the dark as well, it's going to take a little bit longer. And then the only other thing I did with this was added some essential oils, which I'll be talking about in a moment. And even with as simple as that was, it did seem to really help my hair do what it was meant to do. Now, one more thing I want to state before I get onto the recipe is that vitamin D deficiencies are also another reason you can be losing your hair. So it may not be caused from thyroid issues or from menopause, but maybe simply a lack of vitamin D. So there's very few vitamins and minerals that I think a person should have to add to their diet, and one of those is the vitamin D, because a lot of us have a deficiency in that, as well as magnesium. So be looking into adding these in the most natural way you can. Obviously, the best way to get it is through your food, but even then sometimes we still can't get enough of either the magnesium or the vitamin D. And I do have a video out, it's actually an older one, but I'm going to go ahead and link to that in the description box down below about eggshells and a very natural way to get your calcium and magnesium. But I also talk about some vegan ways that you can help increase the calcium and magnesium in your own diet. So I recommend you check that out because these could also be issues causing your hair loss. All right, so let's get on to this recipe. So I'm going to show this again. This is my red pepper infused oil. Again, I prefer to use red pepper flakes because rather than cayenne powder, because it doesn't clump at the bottom of the jar. So if you have allergies to cayenne or any, peppers, any kind of hot pepper, that's not going to be the option for you. So again, just like with any of my videos, just keep in mind any of the things that I'm using that you might be sensitive to or have allergies to. Those are the things you need to leave out. But the great thing about this is there's so many other options that you can use to make the oil to tailor it to suit you. So what I'm going to do, and I don't normally use measurements, I'm doing this for the sake of you guys, but I'm going to start with a tablespoon of cayenne pepper flakes. I'm going to put in 2 because I really like my infusion strong. Again, tailor it to you because this will make the oil have a very warm feeling to it. It's not, for me, it doesn't burn at all. It's just, it will have a warming effect, which is also one of the reasons why I use it in my homemade muscle and joint rub, which also, if you're interested in that, I will link to it down below. And then one of the new ingredients are nasturtium flowers. The nasturtium flowers, the things I like to dry them and save them for are anything related to hair because they're really good for helping to increase and promote good hair growth. And I don't know why I never thought of this in my previous recipe because I knew this back then. So I'm going to put a couple tablespoons of the dried nasturtium flowers. So if you're not growing nasturtium or you haven't done it yet, I highly recommend it. I have a video I did a few years ago on nasturtiums and their benefits, and it's about the leaves and the flowers both. They're excellent. They're not just a beautiful flower that are easy to grow. They have so many good properties, and of course they're edible and quite tasty. And another one I'm going to add to this particular recipe are some honeysuckle. I finally got some honeysuckle this last year and started growing it. So I'm going to put a couple tablespoons of that one in. And again, if you don't have these things, don't fret. Just go by what you have on hand. If all you have are the pepper flakes, then just start with that. That's all I started with in my original recipe. Some other ones that I'm not going to add this to this because I really need to conserve my own homegrown dehydrated lavender flowers and leaves for my skin cream. If you grow lavenders, go ahead and dry up both the flowers and the leaves. The flowers are where most of your potency is, or most of the benefits are, but the leaves have some as well and are very good for you. So I decided to start doing both. So I would say add a tablespoon or 2 of your lavender if you have that. A couple other great options are some dehydrated sage. These are all from my garden, all these herbs that I'm adding. But you can also buy herbs. My favorite brands to get are Frontier or Star West. You can find them both in organic. And I usually buy from Amazon. But if you don't like to buy from Amazon, you can also go to Vitacost. Vitacost carries those 2 brands. A lot of times, even on Vitacost, the prices can be even lower. I've actually started buying my essential oils now from Vitacost because I find I can get a better deal there. So I'll put a link to Vitacost down below. Rosemary is another really good herb to add. Both rosemary and sage, it's pretty much the same constituent, which I believe is the rosmarinic acid. If I remember correctly, it's in both of them, and that is also very good for helping to stimulate hair growth. So lavender, nasturtium flowers, rosemary, and sage are 4 of the top herbs for helping to stimulate the hair growth. And honeysuckle, I don't recall if it's actually good for, I was going to look it up before I started this video, I forgot. I don't recall if it's actually good for stimulating hair growth, but I know honeysuckle flowers are very good for the skin and the hair in general, so I figured I'd go ahead and throw some in since I haven't used any yet. Another really good option to add to your oil, which is already an oil is castor oil, because castor oil is known to be very good for helping to promote hair growth. In fact, some of you may remember Stacy from Off Grid with Doug and Stacy did a video a while back on castor oil and how she started putting it, I think it was on her eyelashes and eyebrows or something, and she found that by doing that daily, it really helped her eyelashes get thicker. I think it was her eyelashes. And this was also the brand she recommended because it's organic, it's hexane free, and ever since I watched that video, this is the castor oil I switched to. So for this, though I don't recommend using this as your main oil because it's so thick, you're going to want it to be a little bit, you're not going to want it to be that thick because it's going to be a lot easier for application. But then again, it could be a matter of choice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off with, let's say maybe putting a couple of very big tablespoons in there. I may put more. In fact, let's go ahead and put 4. That will equal a 1/4 cup because there's 4 tablespoons in a 1/4 cup. And then I'm going to top this off with my avocado oil. Now notice I use both of these. I like the Chosen Foods is my favorite. And it comes in these nice glass bottles that you can reuse for all kinds of things, like bottling your homemade wines and meads, or storing your homemade vinegars, or whatever it is, your different tinctures, your cough, colds, and flu medicine. In fact, I have one like this that's got cough, cold, and flu medicine in it in the fridge. So that one and then this one, they're both available on Costco. You can either go in the store and buy it and get the best price there. But if you're like us and you're not that close to Costco and you do a lot of ordering online, either one of these are available online. So anyway, I'm just going to top this off with the avocado oil. And the more I think about it, if you don't mind having a thicker oil, you could try infusing with only the castor oil because it is very beneficial. But you also have to think about your own skin and hair. Can it handle an oil that heavy? Because you're going to be rubbing this into your scalp. What I recommend doing is putting on a tight fitting lid and then shake it up really well. You want all the herbs and spices you got in there to mix very well into your oil, and that what you'll probably find is that once you've done that, you're going to have some headspace there. Go ahead and top that off. And since I'm not too worried because I have very dry skin and hair, I'm going to go ahead and top it off with some more castor oil. But if you have very oily skin and hair, you might want to just not even use the castor oil and just stick with your lighter oils like grapeseed oil or the avocado oil. So I'm going to shake that up again. And then make sure you put on the top of your lid, whether you use tape or you've got a lid like this and you're going to write directly on it, the date that you started it. Because here's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to put this in a dark place, and depending on the oil, like I mentioned earlier, you're going to either keep it in a cool place or a warm place. If you're using a good heat stable oil like avocado oil, then you can keep it in a warm place and it will infuse better. And I would still say leave it for 2 months. If you're doing a colder infusion, because maybe you're using olive oil or some other oil that's not quite as heat stable, then I recommend going 3 months. The longer you let it sit and infuse, the more benefits you're going to pull out of the herbs and the spice into the oil itself. So after your oil is done infusing for that 2 to 3 month time period, you can leave it longer if you want, then what you're going to do is you're going to get yourself, and you'll see that this already has herbs and some oil in it because I just strained out right here a jar of the infused oil I use to make my homemade skin cream. And so that's why you see it like that. And what I do is I like to take the mesh strainer, set it on top of a measuring cup or a bowl, whatever you want to do. You can also do this through cheesecloth, but it's just going to be a little bit messier. I'll go ahead and link to a set down below. They're pretty inexpensive to get the stainless steel ones in a set of 3. So I have the big one that fits on my batter bowl. I have this medium size here that fits on the 4-cup measuring cup. And then I have one even smaller that can fit on the 1 and 2 cup measuring cups. So I like using the glass measuring cups to catch it in. It just makes a great receptacle because then you can easily pour it into whatever jar or bottle that you would like to keep it in once it's finished. The next step is definitely going to be a matter of choice, and this is what I know I will do, is once I have it all strained out, I still like to add some essential oils. Now, it might not be fully necessary for you to do that and to add that extra expense, But if you're very concerned about it, it's just going to give it a little bit more boost. And so definitely to this one, since I didn't put any lavender flowers in the infusion, I'm going to be adding some lavender oil. A couple other oils I recommend highly would be the sage and or the rosemary. Now I've already got rosemary and sage infusing in there anyway, so I may or may not add those. But definitely I will be adding the lavender oil, which of course also adds a very nice smell. You can start off with just a few drops. I usually put in a jar this size, I'm gonna put about a capful, which will equal to approximately a teaspoon depending on the size of your cap. So a cap like this is usually about a teaspoonful. So what I do is with bottles, I always take that little dropper thing out of the essential oil bottle because I pour my oils, I don't sprinkle them or drop them. So again, matter of choice, you can start with just a dash, a drop or two, whatever. You have to tailor it to suit you. I can handle some pretty strong essential oils. I've always been that way. So for me to put a whole capful or a whole teaspoon full of each one, I've done all three before, which is what is in this one. Into this, I can handle that, but that might be too much for some people. So again, you got to start small and work your way up. And I also again believe that you could, if you have all these other great herbs, or even just one, maybe you're just using the rosemary or just using the sage or just using the lavender, with the oils that I showed you here, that might be all you need to give your hair the boost it needs to really get going. And it's going to be healthy for your scalp anyway. Another thing to always consider when you're using infused oils like this, not only are you getting the benefits topically, that is the goodness of those herbs is getting into your bloodstream and helping you from the inside out as well. And with that in mind, don't forget, a good diet is really important to also help strengthen hair, nails, teeth, any of that from the inside out. So we gotta, even though topical treatments are great, just like with the skin cream or this hair oil, also getting good nutrition, minerals, vitamins, and all that through your food, and learning how to adjust your diet to work for you. And that doesn't mean everybody should be vegan or everybody should be grain-free and everybody should be gluten-free, because everybody's needs are different. So don't let anybody guilt you into a certain way of eating. All right, well, I hope you found this video helpful and that you give this recipe a try, and again, tailor it to suit you, because even just like with diet, this recipe is not one size fits all, and just like any of my recipes, it's meant to be tailored to suit you, what's available to you, and your needs. All right, well, thanks for watching. Take care, and God bless.